Okay, let's get started on this cute little pouch. This does come in only one size, the 4x6, or I should say 6x4, will be the approximate finished size. So I've gone ahead and already done the back panel, and I put a little arrow on it to indicate the top, so that when I try to line this up later, I can do so. It's a little stiff, so we'll see how easy it is to turn out. And I just have fusible fleece on the back side, but for the padding, but you got to remember that with the poly mesh there, it adds up some of the layer too. So we'll see how cute this is when it's all done. Obviously this is my first time doing this particular file, but easy peasy lemon squeezy. This is no different than most of the patterns that I've done in this genre. I'm just doing the video for you just to have a fresh content on my YouTube channel and to make it a little bit easier for you to understand. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the supplies. So we have the backing file. If you prefer, which is what my recommendation would be, not to have a quilted back, then you could just use a plain solid. But it just depends on the market that you're looking for. It's definitely going to be a little bit more professional looking having the back quilted as well. You'll notice that these lines are actually two different color stops, so it gives you flexibility. You can have the overall design like I have, or you can have just these two wide lines here, or just the center lines. You'll see when you look at it, there's different coloring. And I'm looking at this, and there's just a slight little variance. That's fine. I'm not changing it. In the width, it kind of gets picked up with the batting as well. So we need that. Then we need our front panel, and it's just easier to cut it at the same size. You will have a little bit of waste. This did use exactly one. Actually, I should use the one panel is slightly longer because it was just a smidge wider. So to get it all in, I had to cut one at one angle and one at another. So it is a slightly difference, and I intended to use this one for the top. But anyway, it's fine. There's extra built into the seam allowance, so you can get this pouch out of one sheet of vinyl from my punk embroidery. And then we need our batting for the front. And since it's fusible, it doesn't really matter which size the fusible goes. I'm just putting it on the up side so that I can keep the lining loose. Then you'll need two panels for the lining. And then your zipper. You can use the number 5 or number 3 zipper. I'm using number 3 zipper here. I don't use them very frequently, but this is a small pouch, so it's a perfect size for it. And then I've got my poly mesh hoop. I have a 7511 needle that I will be prepared to move up to a 9014 needle once I get to that step of adding on the final. And then I have my little D-ring. I have a 1/2 inch D-ring here, and I just take my 3 inches by 1 inch, fold both edges to the center, and then I put a piece of Fuse Plus with the fusible side facing up, such that when I press the centers, the long edges in, that fusible takes a hold and holds onto those little fraying edges, so it keeps it nice and compact. All right, I'm going to go ahead and run color stop 1 and be right back. Okay, so here we have our placement. Ignore this line. I forgot to change the file when I started stitch it. So this is our overall placement line. Just give you a coverage of where the bag's going to be. And then you have 3 zipper placement lines. So for a number 3 zipper, you're going to center the zipper in between these 2 outer lines. For a number 5 zipper, you're going to center it on this middle line. Both side zippers should center on the middle line anyway. But so I have this facing, the zipper pole will be over here because I'm right-handed. Most people, that's how it is for most people. If you want to do it the opposite way, you can. That's fine. So I want the zipper pull over here. So this is the top of my bag. So I'm going to grab my zipper, and we need our tape. I'm using transport tape by 3M. And I like to start on the closed end of the zipper first. So I rotate the hoop so that I can see these lines easily when I anchor the zipper on this side. So again, on the number 3 zipper, you're going to just center it between those 2 lines. But if you were using a number 5 zipper, such as this, you'll see that that zipper is wider. Number 5 is 1.25 inch in general, and number 3 is 1 inch in general. I've had them slightly bigger and I've had them slightly smaller on both sizes. So if you're doing a number 5 zipper, you see there's a line that's created from the negative space of the zipper teeth. You'll line that line up with the center line, like that, and then tape it down. But like I said, even the number 3 zipper, that line should still meet. So if we put this in between here, these 2 lines, these outer lines, and fold it up, you should still be able to meet and have that those lines, the centers, match up. It's just easier with the number 3 just to use the outer lines. Then I'll rotate the hoop away from me, and I'm going to put, depending on how wide your bag is, in this case it's a small one, I just need a couple pieces of strips of tape. So again, I'm centering it in between that line, and I'm trying to keep the tape as far out of the stitching area as possible. But this tape is pretty friendly to having the needle go through it. It doesn't usually gum up my needles, but if it does, you can clean your needle and save it with some rubbing alcohol. Now, that said, by the time you get it gummied up, it's probably time for a new needle anyway. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really bad about changing my needles, and I end up not doing it until I start to see stitch issues. So that's not ideal. Okay, we're going to run step 2, which is just going to tack down this zipper. We'll do that on camera because it's a quick step. And I didn't mention this tape from 3M. I can usually use it like 3 or 4 times. And you'll see I have it all over my machine. I go through periodically and clean off my whole machine and get the rubbing alcohol out and get all the residue off, just to make it pretty and fresh. Usually do that when I'm going to do the oiling. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this tape off. Now, I should add, when you're using certain materials like this faux suede vinyl that I'm using from my embroidery, I do notice that the tape usually doesn't get as much of an opportunity for it because it pulls up some of the backing on it. Sorry if I'm giving you a whiplash here with the camera. But I found this seems to actually give the best view out of all the options I've tried. This is like a lanyard tripod. So it sits on your neck, and it's very flexible. And I'll have to put a link to it because maybe you might want it yourself. Okay, so now what we want to do is put our lining. So flip the hoop up over straight like this. So we're going to take one of our lining panels and we're going to lay it with the right side facing down, and it should be centered over your zipper, the bottom of your zipper. So it doesn't matter which zipper you're using. It's the cutting instructions are enough that it'll cover both ways. And then we're going to tape that down. Now, if you were doing a bag that has a real long panel, you'd want to tape it in the middle. Now, use your hand to hold it so it doesn't come loosey-goosey underneath, and then flip it over. Now we're going to take our non-quilted panel, and we're going to repeat the process. We're going to lay it right side facing down and ignore the dirt on the back of my vinyl. I got a little bit of dirt on it. And then we're going to tape that down. Okay, now I'm going to run step 3, which is the tack down stitch, and then I'll be back. Okay, now normally what we would be doing is folding both the panels over and doing the top stitch, what I like to call my flip and stitch. But in this case, we're not going to do the top stitch till we're all done with the quilting. So leave the lining as it is on the back, and then go ahead. You can remove this tape now to reuse it or pitch it. But we're ready for our batting now. So if we were to put this batting all the way up next to that placement line and then fold it over like this, it creates a really thick bulge here, and it's not very pleasing to the eye. So in a regular sewing world, you would always keep the batting out of your seam allowance. So we can't do that for the entire bag. It just doesn't work that way in the hoop bag. But I do try to eliminate it as much as I can. So what we're going to do is butt up the batting to the bottom of the panel here, the exterior panel. Again, make sure your lining doesn't come undone. And this is gripping to the stabilizer really well, so I don't need to tape it down. But if yours is loosey-goosey, then tape it, because if you don't tape, then what happens is it'll start to get ajar and you'll instinctively reach your hand in there to try and fix it. And when you do, you're so close to that moving needle, you get a needle through your fingers. So I'm going to run step 4, which is just going to tack this down and give us a trimming place, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I cut my batting so close that I barely have much to trim off here. But I'm going to go ahead and go all the way around with my duck bill scissors and trim as close to that tack down line as I can, because we want to try and keep this out of the final seam. So this is going to be, I mean, it's literally like a 1/16 of an inch away, just so that we don't get loosey-goosey sides either. So that's the downside. If you trim the stabilizer, or I'm sorry, the batting too close to the seam allowance, it might be thick. But if you trim it too far away and leave too wide of a gap, then the edges look really off. They look, I don't know, loose. So I just try to compromise and trim as much as I can out, but keep it as close to that. And you can see I'm barely getting any trimming here. All right, so now we're on to the quilting. So we want to pull this exterior panel down as tautly as we can, and I like to keep it over a hard surface as I'm doing this. Remember, your lining is out of the way. So we're going to fold this over, and this time you will need tape, and finger press it, or you can use your little pressing device. I have one of these little Dritz rollers that helps a lot with vinyl. You can just kind of roll it like this, especially if you don't have any fingers. So that's this little tool. And then we're going to pull it on both sides. Now I'm not going to do the next part on camera because it's going to take a few minutes. I'm going to run color stop 5 and 6. I might stop at 5 and show you what the quilting looks like with just 5, and then we'll see with it 6, and then I'll be right back. Okay, and here we go. This is color stop 5 completed, and I'm going to run color stop 6. So actually this grid mapping is very similar to my bag Bella. So if you've done that one, I'm just trimming these little tails off as I go. I try to carry as much as I can and not have you do jumps and tails, but sometimes it just doesn't work for the pattern. So I'm going to run step 6 and I'll be right back. Actually, I'm going to run step 6. Yeah, run step 6 and I'll be back. Well, that was fast, wasn't it? So I'm going to go ahead and remove this tail. Now we're ready to turn the hoop over again and fold down our lining panel now. And likewise, we want to finger press that seam. Let's go ahead and finger press that. And then tape it down. Now, if your lining is so long that it interferes with your hoop attachment, just roll it up at the bottom here tightly, like a paper towel roll, and then tape it down. Okay, so now we have that, and we're ready to run step 7, which is our top stitching. All right, just like that, and I'll be right back. And then we're in step 7 and 8. I forgot to mention, just go ahead and do 8, which is our strap placement marker there. So now we're ready to add on our D-ring strap connector. Like I said, make sure you trim these jumps and tails as you go, because they will get stuck in the seam of the bag, and then it'll drive you crazy. Okay, so now we need our little, and I know the width of my presser foot can get through. I make this 3 inches so that you have plenty of room to have the presser foot get through. I have a very small presser foot. You can see that. And the Janome 500, you see how tiny it is? So I can get pretty close to my D-ring strap connector, and I know I'm not going to go over it. So I overlap mine a little bit longer. Usually I'll just actually even cut this 2 inches long. But what you want is this placement line here. Regardless of how long this is, you want about a 1/2 inch overhang. And that just gives security to the strap. It creates like a cantilever effect, so that as the energy of pulling from this wristlet strap is here, and you're pulling, it's got this area that's seamed down, that's back here to help absorb that energy so it doesn't pull out of the seam. So if you didn't have that extra here and you had pulling up here, so you had it just like this, and it's cut even with the seam, then there's nothing there. It's going to pull right out. You can even see as I'm holding it with my finger, that's what it wants to do. Whereas if you leave this extra overhang and you pull it, it can't pull out. I mean, it might eventually, but it's harder. So I'm going to go ahead and trim mine down a little bit, just because I want it to be as close to the edge as I can. But you have to be mindful of what your presser foot, how wide yours is. Like on my 350E, which was the first only single needle, embroidery machine I had, it has a wider foot, and so I wouldn't be able to get that close to it. So I know I can get this close. My final seam is going to be slightly inside that area. Okay. There's no issues with having a longer strap connector. Okay, I'm going to run this just because it takes just a few seconds. One thing to be mindful of on my machine, when the presser foot is done and it's going to the next spot, sometimes it might hit one of these areas of hardware. So I always like to listen and make sure I pull the lever up in the back to make sure that doesn't happen. And just like that, we are almost done. So now we're ready to add on our top panels. And before we do that, we're going to go ahead and remove the stabilizer behind the zipper. This tape off here. And you want to be careful when you pull the tape off so you don't pull your stitches out. So on the back of the hoop, I'm going to grab my favorite Alex Sanderson 4-in-1 tool with my stiletto and my seam ripper, and I want to get my blade in underneath the stabilizer just so I can see it. As long as I can see the silver, I know I'm not tearing anything or cutting. And then just glide it right along close to that edge. And it kind of pulls the stabilizer out of the seam as you're going when you do it this way. So now the tension has been released. So now we can get in there with these scissors and then hold the stabilizer on this end and then cut it there. And then we want to trim it just to the zipper tack down, which my stitch came through down here, darn. But you want it just on that second line there, not all the way to the placement line. And then just trim it all the way down. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and lay our our lining panel, and make sure you have that position whichever way you want it. need to flip mine so it's the same direction. All right, and then you're going to line that up with the top of your zipper. It should be even over the rest of the bag. And then again, we're going to tape this down. And what we're going to do is we're going to run through the top of the bag. And hold this with your hand. We're going to do the top stitch, and then we will flip the lining out of the way so we can do the side seams and not enclose the lining. Okay, so now we're going to move our zipper. All right, leave your zipper pull, sorry. Woo, forgot that. Okay, so here's my top. So in theory, these lines should line up. So if you want the quilting to line up on the seams, at least on the bottom seams, I'm not sure if the side seams are going to line up or not. You want to kind of bend this up and match up your lines. So that's matched up. That's matched up. That's matched up. And then hold that in place and tape it. Should have had my tape ready. Okay. Everything's still lined up. And tape it along the edges. We're going to pull this up, but we need to line it up like this to make sure that the lines all match. Okay, now flip it around and come to the top. And tape this down. Okay, so now we're going to run step 10, and then I'll be right back. Step 10 is done, so now it's holding that panel in place. We're going to flip to the back. I'm going to fold the lining up so we can top stitch through it. Sometimes I don't do this step. I prefer it because it helps keep the lining out of the zipper, but it does create like a tiny little pucker. I'll show you at the end, on the end. So it's up to you whether you like that or not, but we'll see it at the end. I'll show you. Okay, so I'm going to hold this again with my hand and flip it over. All right, now we're going to go ahead, and I'm not going to top stitch through the front because that does create a thickness at the corner seams and a little bump, and I don't really care for that look. I don't normally find any issues with not top stitching through the front. So I'm going to run step 11, and I'll be right back. Okay, so 11's all done, so now we can loosen up this tape real quick so we can raise this panel up. You don't need to undo the whole thing. You just want to make sure you have enough so you can move the zipper pull over. You're going to have to lift it all the way up. So you just want to move the zipper pull to about mid-place. If your pull is really jangly, then tape it down. And then make sure your D-ring strap connector also is not flipped over like this. If it is, go ahead and tape that down. So this is where we should be looking at right now. Okay. Now tape this back down again. Let me see what I mean about the fuzziness comes off on this. Okay, so now I'm going to run step 12, and that's going to be our exterior seam. Then when that's done, I'm going to flip it over, fold this down, and tape it, and then run step 13. Your machine will show 14 steps, but we're not doing the 14th step. So let me run step 12, and then I'll be right back. So the top exterior is all done. Now we're going to flip over to the back, like I mentioned, and fold the lining down. So just pull this as tautly as you can, and then tape it down. Like that. And then we're going to run step 13. And remember, don't do 14. So I'm going to run step 13, and then I'm going to remove it from the hoop. So before you remove it from the hoop, make sure you check the back and make sure the lining didn't come undone. I'll remove it from the hoop and trim the extra stabilizer, and then I'll be back with you. Okay, we're back. So I've got all the extra stabilizer trimmed out of the bag. So I'm going to grab my Kai 7205 scissors because they are the best. If you're not a member of my Facebook group, please consider joining. Should be a link down below because I frequently give away pairs of 7205s because I love them so much. So what we're going to do is we want to leave a little bit longer or wider tab to close the turning hole. It just makes sense in the hoop bags. We don't have a lot of coverage to do it any other way. So I'm going to just draw little angles here because I like to angle mine. You could do it. I've seen some people who angle it like this way. I tried that, but it seemed to be too bulky for me. But it does have its benefits because it spreads out inside the seam a little better. So I like this way. You can even just leave it a rectangular. But I do that to remind myself not to trim that piece off. So I'm going to go ahead and start at the notch on both ends and get down to my seam allowance, just so that I have that as my guide. But then I'm actually going to trim it from the, so I trimmed here and here. I'm going to trim it from this side because I can see the stitching a little bit better. One thing you're going to make sure we don't do is cut our tab off. So our tab is over here. So we'll make sure we pay attention to that. So you want to trim it down to about anywhere between 1/8 and 1/4. So I'm just gonna, I trim it all the way around. And then see how I kind of curved around that corner to taper that seam allowance a little bit. I don't like to do a full notch. I like to trim it at a taper on both sides. Okay, and then we'll come over here, and when we get to this side, we're going to hold this strap connector out of the way and trim the back first. All right, and then flip it over to the other side and pull the strap connector this way because we don't want to cut that tail off, and then trim the seam allowance on the exterior side. So now we have that little hanging out there, and then go ahead and go with the corner notching or tapering, and then go ahead and ignore my dirty vinyl there. It's going to be hidden in the quilt in the bag. You can't see it. All right. So now for our tab, we don't need, first off, we don't need it that high anyway, but we don't need the exterior to be that high. So go ahead and fold the lining out of the way and trim this off. Okay, and then you can trim this down a little bit too. It doesn't need to be that wide. And if you have any scraps that are big enough to use for strap connectors, save those. Otherwise, the rest goes in the bin. Okay, so here's where we're at now. We got to trim off the top. And we're going to do the same thing at the top. We're going to slightly taper the corner. Now the hardest part is to singe the zipper, but if you can get in there and singe the zipper, it's very helpful because the zipper tape will be loose and over time it could start to come apart. So I just try to kind of flex my fingers around it, and then it only takes just a quick hit of the lighter to singe that edge. So watch your finger, make sure you're not burning yourself, and then just quick. See how fast that was? That's all you need. And then over here on the same side, on this side. And if you have to err on melting the vinyl hem, then do that, but don't do the cotton. And that's it. You can feel it, it gets hard. Okay, so now we're ready to turn the bag on the right side out. So let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, So I'm going to reach inside, and it is really stiff. And because it's vinyl, that makes it even stiffer. So there are some tips around this. You can put it in a hot dryer, or you can use a pressing cloth and a hot iron to warm it up, or a blow dryer. I actually bought a blow dryer just for this purpose because my blow dryer was 20 some years old and actually had only been used in the last 10 years for defrosting the ice maker. So it was rusty, but I still have yet to use it and pull out that little tip because I just kind of work it. But I'm starting to have, had a medical situation 18 months ago, and it's left my hands a little bit, I get a little neuropathy in them. And so I can see why it's beneficial to use those other devices to make the vinyl easier to turn. And it is a small hole, but I assure you, you can do it. So just keep working on getting it through. This is the lining side. You just want to kind of get that exterior pushed through this opening. And usually they call this birthing the bag. And usually just like when you birth a child, once you get one corner through. See, I somehow lost my corner and I was pulling on this. That's not, you want the far corner, not this corner. I don't know what I did. I lost it and I was pulling the wrong way. I'm like, why is this not working? Usually when you get one of these corners through, so you see how I'm pushing this corner, pull this back, and then you're using your thumb to push the other one through, and see how now you can pull it. And hemostats are very helpful for this too. You can get them in there and use them as a third hand. But see, now you got this side through, and as you're pushing that through, your bottom comes through with it. And now the rest of it, you start pulling from up here gently. It likes to just kind of usually roll right through with it. This is really small. This is a small pouch, but it's dense, so just take your time. I do backstitch the opening there, so you have a little bit of extra strength, but you don't want to pull your stitches out. And then here you can go ahead and just keep pushing that upper corner again, where the zipper's at, and just push it through. Takes a few minutes, but and it's not too bad. Okay, there we go. Okay, and now you want to use your favorite turning device. I like my Alex Anderson tool, or even the hemostats. These are hemostats. They're used in medical stuff, but this particular pair has a rounded over edge. So when you want to use them to pull stuff, you just kind of grab what you want, and then you lock them in place, and then you unlock them. But if you want to use it as a turning tool to push out your corners, leave it locked together, and then just kind of reach in and push it out. I used this primarily until I got my Alex Anderson tool. And one of my friends, testers, customers, she's the one who first introduced me to that Alex Anderson tool. She sent me a care package years ago to cheer me up. And it was in there, and I just fell in love with it. And I had to order another one for my sewing table. So I have my embroidery area, and then I do sometimes still like to sew. So I'm pushing these corners up. The more you can push out while it's the lining side, the easier it is when it's the exterior side. Okay, so now you see you have two areas here. You have this front area where the lining, the hem has already kind of folded over itself, and then you have this thicker area where all the pieces come together. So that's the difference within the hoop bag. You can't sew linings together by themselves and then exterior together by itself. You have to do it all. You get one lining that's loose by itself, another lining is sewn with the exteriors. So we get our glue. I use Beacon Fabri-Tac, not a sponsor, just what I prefer. And this is a small one, so I'm going to try and do it all at once. I run the glue right along the line where the stitches are. Okay. And then I'm going to pull this, I pull this down. I'm going to pull the lining up into that glue line. So the edge of the lining should be right at the stitches, like that. And then use a couple of these clips. And I always end up getting glue on my hands. If you're sensitive, this is another area where the hemostats come in handy. You can kind of use them to help push that down so the glue's on the hemostats and not your fingers. But if you're sensitive to chemicals, then I would recommend using some double stick fusible tape, or it's not the regular kind that's not fusible, but it's just double stick tape. This is going to be buried all the way at the bottom of the bag, so you don't have to worry about it coming loose over time. It shouldn't if you use one of those other methods. But that way you don't have to worry about getting glue on your hands. This is just what I prefer. I know some people like the iron tape, the kind that you iron together. But I just find that those other options leave the hem here, the seam, to be kind of stiff. Whereas this glue, once it dries, it's really flexible. I always put the cap back on this immediately because it comes out the top if you don't. Right, and we just need to let that set for just about a minute. When you're doing a bigger bag, by the time you get done with pinning or clipping the one side, the other side is going to be dry. Okay, I'm going to keep my hemostats to help me turn. Give it one more minute. And you can go ahead and reach in here and finish unzipping your zipper while you're waiting. One thing to be mindful of is some zipper pulls are locking, and so it makes it hard to do this. It has to be in a particular position to unlock. Okay. All right, I'm going to remove this now. I think it should be set. It sets in about 1 minute, and then it cures fully in 24 hours, I believe is what the instructions said. Okay. It's not quite set yet, but I'm going to go ahead and try it just for the interest of time. So then we just go ahead and flip this through. And if everything lines up, I'll be like really excited because there's no guarantee it will. But I did kind of try and make it so it would all line up. And here's that little pucker like I talked to you about with the lining. See how that kind of tapers there? Like pucker's not maybe the right word, a pleat. So now when you get to these corners, take your turning device and push it into this, and then with your fingers up here, and then push it back into the seam. So you hold it down, apply pressure, and then push it back, and that'll bring that seam out. Okay, and then over here on this side, similarly, you're going to put your zipper or your turning device underneath the pull. Put your thumb on top, and then pull out that corner. See that? And then because we didn't top stitch through the back, it's a little bit looser there, but that's okay. Oh, why did I keep getting this all over? Now use your device again to get in here and push these corners out. And what I did this time, I always mean to do this and I always forget. There's a trick when you're sewing a bag. Sometimes the corners get pointy, but when you're sewing a bag, rub the turning device along the seam at the bottom and on the sides. Okay, so the trick when you're sewing a bag is you can pivot at the corner and take one stitch at a diagonal and then finish your stitching, and it helps prevent you from having that really sharp corner. That's what I did in this design. So you'll notice that if you look closely. All right, and that looks good for me. And then we go ahead and zip it up. And there we go. We have a cute little wristlet that is perfect to take your cards in. I had a gift cards in here somewhere. I could have shown you. Here's an expired card. So you see it'll fit your cards in here. It's plenty big enough for that. Get a little wristlet strap. I only have this gold colored hardware one. Attach it, and there you go. Adorable. And did we match up the edges? Almost perfect. I got a little bit off, but almost perfect. And there we go. This is the Munchkin bag. I hope you like it.